So we were discussing the topic religion, communalism, and politics. We had discussed this page, and now we have to start from communalism. Let's see. So, the a problem begins when religion is seen as the basis of nation. There are many nations who were built or created on the basis of one religion. For example, Pakistan was created on the basis of religion, for example, Muslim, and there are many religions. For example, Israel is for Jews and everything. The creation of those nations for created on the idea of religion. The example of Northern Ireland in Chapter 3 shows the dangers of such an approach to nationalism. The problem becomes more acute when religion is expressed in politics in exclusive and partisan terms, when one religion and its followers are pitted against another. Chalo, even that's not a problem. The new state is creating everything. But when these religion divisions are used and they are expressed in politics and so then that's where it turns out to be a threat because people use it against each other. They instigate people for their own benefit, and that has happened. We've seen it record of quite a lot of times that's been done. This happens when beliefs of one religion are presented as superior to those of another. So we say that, oh, this religion is my religion is better than yours is nothing and everything. We tend to compare and we say that no, no, my religion is superior. When the demands of one religious group are formed in opposition of another, and when the state power is used to establish domination of one religious group over the rest. This manner of using religion in politics is communal politics, and that is how this is known as communal politics. We even you might have seen it in even India as a case where sometimes some people try to mix religion and politics, and then they not only try to mix it, they try to use it for their advantage. And that's where the main problem begins. This communal politics, which is based on the idea that religion is the principal basis of social community. No, principal basis of social community is not religion, it is humanity. We all are human beings, and we should look at each other as um, individuals, as human beings, and not because of some religion, gender, is they all are classification, just to make the society come in better law and order. That's it. Communalism involves thinking along the following lines: the followers of a particular religion must belong to one community, their fundamental interests are the same. No, it's not that. Any difference that they may have is irrelevant or trivial for community life. It also follows that people who follow different religions cannot belong to the same social community. That is very wrong. If some people think that if you are Hindu, then you can have only Hindu as your identity. No, why only Hindu? You have so many other identities than your religious identity. And whatever religion you follow, you all can be part of social community. Come together, all Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Jain, Buddhist, and all the other religions. They can come together and be a part of the social community. The followers of different religion have some commonalities. They are these are superficial and immaterial. Their interests are bound to be different and involve a conflict. A lot of times we say, "Arey, he's not from your thing vagera, you don't have common interest." That is thinking in itself is very wrong. In its extreme form of communalism leads to the belief that people belonging to different religions cannot live as equal citizens within one nation. Either one of them has to dominate the rest, or they have to form different nations. It's not like that. This belief is fundamentally flawed. People of one religion do not have the same interests and aspirations in every context. Everyone has several other roles, positions, and identities. This is very important. Other than only being a Muslim, or other than only being a Hindu or a Parsi, you are more than that. You are somebody's mother, you are somebody's uncle, you are somebody's, you firstly you are a human being, you are a citizen of a particular country. You might, be a teacher to somebody, you might be a doctor to somebody, so you have different positions and different identities other than just your religious identity. Keep it in mind, and don't try to, don't try, and don't let anyone try brainwash you. There are many voices inside every community. All these voices have a right to be heard. Yes, every community has their own demands and needs, and they have a right to be heard. Okay, you cannot say that. I'm not saying here that you cannot fulfill your rights, and okay, I'm not saying, but I'm saying there should be no division, or just because one person or one group of people, they belong to different religion as yours. Therefore, any attempt to bring the followers of one religion together in context other than religion is bound to suppress any many voices within that community. I often so this is this person saying, I often crack jokes about people from one religion. Does that make one communal? See, joke and everything, it depends. Sometimes even people from the same community, they also make a joke. Jokes are, they try to say something very uh, relatable and everything in a funny way. Okay, so if we talk about comedy, jokes, and everything, that can totally take a different turn. It can be, jokes can be seen as a positive way, that can be taken as a derogatory, in a derogatory manner, and so many other forms. So it depends. Eventually, what it depends, that how you talk, how you take a joke is, depends on your sense of humor. If you feel like this is funny, you laugh, ha ha ha, and if you don't feel like, you take it in like negative sense, and like you say that how can this person make fun of me and everything. So just that's a very different aspect. But you can also think, you can also have your different opinion in that. What was the intent behind that joke? Intentions are everything. If you just wanted to make people laugh and didn't want to really, yeah, people make people angry or put anybody down, then it's okay, it was just a joke, it must be taken. But if your intention was something to put other people, down, and being, Larry, look, you are so you people are like that and everything, then that's wrong. So the intent of the joke also has to be seen. But you can also have your own opinion. Communalism can take various forms in politics. The most common is the expression of communalism is in everyday beliefs. These routinely involve religious prejudice, stereotypes, or religious communities and beliefs in the superiority of one's religion over another. This is so common that we often fail to notice it, even when we believe it. These are small small things, we just tend to do it. We think that, our everyday life and everything, it's so, these habits, these cultures are so ingrained in, in us, our everyday beliefs, that if, we won't even realize. Hmm. A communal mind often leads to a quest for political dominance of one's own religious communities. For those belonging to majority community, this takes the form of majoritarian dominance. Okay, here we talk about superiority. Here we talk about majoritarian dominance. For those belonging to the minority community, it can take the form of a desire to have a separate political things. Yes, if your, demands are not met, and you feel that they are not listening to you, of course you will want a different nation, or a partition from that place. And that we've seen it in a lot of cases. uh Let's see this glossary. What is this? Family laws, the laws which deal with family related matters. So these are basically family related matters such as marriage, adoption, divorce, inheritance, etc. In our country, different family laws apply to followers or different religions. So a lot of times, these family laws, every religion, they have different type of family laws, and you cannot say that one is wrong and another is right. Every religion, they have the same motive, of family. But yes, a lot of people are also suppressed in the name of family laws. I'm not saying any particular to one religion, but then that can happen in any. If we talk about Hindu, Hindu marriage and everything, you will see that all this dowry system and everything, the Hindus family laws and everything, they have actually ingrained this thing of taking dowry and everything. Whereas if we there are other examples also, you can also google it up, like flaws in the family laws of one particular religion or everything, you can do that. Political mobilization on religious lines is another. So you'll motivate people or mobilize, you'll say that Are, we are in one team or anything, is another frequent form of communalism. This involves the use of sacred symbols, religious leaders, emotional appeal, and you know you'll also they'll plain fear in order to bring followers of one religion together in the political arena. In electoral politics, this often involves special appeal to the interest or emotions of voters. Of you take the this thing, you'll say, Arey, we are from the same thing and we have the same interest, so same motive. No, your motive is to stand and win the election. My motive as a citizen or as a member, is for development, to bring change. Okay, and not your motive is different. Your motive is to be position to be in a position of power. So you need to have this very clarity between these lines, who's using you for what purpose, and so sometimes communalism takes its most ugly form of communal violence, and that is why the most extreme form that can take place is a communal violence, a riots, or massacre. In India and Pakistan suffered some of the worst communal riots at the time of partition. We've seen the independence, when India was independent, became one independent nation, and also the creation of Pakistan, 15th August 1947. And for them it was 14th August on 1947. But you must have seen so many movies based on the partition. If you've not seen, I must recommend you that you should go and watch the movies on partition, on how people were literally killed, their families were taken, there were so many things happen. If you just look, and that will just give you chills. So I suggest you watch a movie. You can watch Gadar, and so many other movies are also there based on partition. In Okay, so the post-independence period has seen a large-scale communal violence. People were divided only on the basis of religions. You don't follow this religion, we are not together. You follow, you are with us. So this is a very beautiful line, that's been written by one poet known as Faiz Ahmad Faiz, and he says that sorry, this person says that we remain strangers even after so many meetings. Bloodstains remain even after so many rains. So can you imagine that even if you're meeting some, for example, somebody um, every day, and so and then you say that, "Arey, we've met so many times, but still we are strangers." And the blood stains, it's very difficult to get rid of blood stains. That even after washing so many times, the blood stain remains. So that's what Mr. Faiz is trying to convey here, that we remain strangers even after so many meetings. Blood stains remain even after so many rains. So that's the impact that has left us on people. So let's talk about secular state. Communalism was and continues to be one of the major challenges, in a democracy, to the democracy of our country. The makers of our constitution were aware of this challenge. This is why they chose the model of secular state, and that is why they said that our country is going to be a secular one. The choice was reflected in several constitutional provisions that we studied last year. We've studied a lot of things, about the fundamental right. If you talk about right to fill, if you talk that, how does, okay, so this question every time, it pops up in many other exams also, and when you grow up, you'll also realize that if you say that, if people ask you, how can you say that India is a secular state and it doesn't have any official religion, then of course you can tell them the two main this thing, that accord our fundamental rights. In out of the six fundamental rights, of course all of them mentions that you have freedom to do this and this, but specifically if you talk about like why can we say that, how, not why, how can we say that India is a secular state, then give them the example that Of course we have right to religion. You can propagate, profess, and you can motivate other people to join your, you cannot compel them, but of course you can tell them or religion वगैरह, so that also has boundaries. Okay. And then we have a right to cultural and educational rights, where the if you want to conserve your religion, culture, and you can have established institutions with the aid of government. Then you can manage all your administrative affairs of the this religious institutions and so on. But you have these rights, but then you also have reasonable restrictions. You cannot just keep on going and doing anything you like only in the name of fundamental right and religion. Okay, so be very careful about on these. There is no official religion for the Indian state, so we have no official religion. Uh, Unlike the status of Buddhism in Sri Lanka and that of Islam in Pakistan and that of Christianity in England, our constitution does not give special status to any religion. We do not give special status to any religion. We maintained a principled distance. Our India as a secular state maintains a principled distance from all the religions. The Constitution provides to all that individuals and communities freedom to profess, practice, and propagate. This is what I was talking about in according to our right to freedom. Okay. So this is R2. A lot of times you write R2 something, R2R, right to religion, right to. I'll just write the R2R. Matlab right to religion. It's a short way form to write that. Okay. Then if you the constitution prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion. You have then you have a right to equality, that you cannot be discriminated on that. At the same time, the constitution allows the state to intervene in the matter of religion in order to ensure that equality within religious communities. Then of course we can take it sorry, we can take this. Let me just write here, okay, so that it's in to highlight that it's really important. We all have reasonable restrictions. Okay, just google sorry we all have reasonable restrictions. Just google it up, and you'll get to know a lot of it about not a lot of it about it. At the same time, okay, we've done it. Understood in this sense, secularism is not just an ideology of some parties or persons. The idea constitutes one of the foundations of a country. Communalism should not be seen as a threat to some people in India. It threatens the very idea of India. So this is very important. When our makers and everything, freedom fighters, they fought for us. They didn't fight that one day the our grandchildren vagera, they'll fight on the basis of religion. They have given up their life for us, our ancestors. Not that one day we fight, not to see that one day we fight on the basis of religion. So this whole discrimination on the basis of community, social division, religion basis, anything that that actually threatens the idea, the very idea of how India was set up, how constitution states what it states, and so on. Just google up that idea of India according to Jawaharlal Nehru, according to Mahatma Gandhi, what they wanted in their what they had of the idea they wanted, about the idea of India they wanted to see, be, and aspired for. That is the why communities need to be combated. A secular constitution like ours is necessary but not sufficient to combat communalism. Of course, even if we say that we have so many mechanism to counter communalism and so, but still it is not sufficient. And it is a difficult task, because you never know who's planning what in a sitting in a four walls, and you really can't assure that. Communal prejudice and propaganda. A lot of times we see propaganda and prejudice need to be countered in everyday lives, and religious based mobilization needs to be countered in the arena of politics. This chair is for the CM designate to provide the secular credentials. There will be plenty of rocking. So, this is a very beautiful way they have shown that. Have you ever seen a rocking chair? You will, if you sit on a rocking chair, like this is a rocking chair, okay? When you sit on a rocking chair, it always like it's like this, it's never stable. It will just keep on moving like this. So that's what they want to convey here, that whoever sits in a position or important position, for example chief minister, for example prime minister, or any important position, they have to prove, or that person should have secular credentials, because just like the rocking chair, that this rocking chair is never stable. The same similarly goes for the example of all religions when they are brought together, for example on a chair, on a rocking chair, then it becomes very dicey, it's not stable. And that is similarly how it's actually very beautifully portrayed, that how religion is actually. Then, if you talk about, let's come here, this portion, let's talk about caste and politics. We have seen two instances of the expression of social divisions in the arena of politics, one largely positive and the other negative. We saw the example of Belgium, then we also saw the example of Sri Lanka. Then, yeah, and so on. There are many examples, okay? Let us turn to our final case, and that of caste and politics, that has both positive as well as negative aspects. Caste in inequalities. Unlike gender and religion, caste division is special in India. All societies have some kind of social inequality, and some form of division of labor. As in, matlab, some people will do this kind of work, some people will do this and that. In most societies, occupations are based on from in most societies, occupations are passed on from one generation to another. You'll always notice that if somebody's father did something, it is most likely that even they will do that same thing, and so they will all pass it on to the next generation. For example, I can give you a very good example of doctors. You'll notice that most of the people who are doctors, they will have their parents also as doctors, and their children will also be doctors. A lot of times, and the second example is of businessmen. You'll see that business persons, whoever is a business person, whoever does business, they'll see that they, even their their parents had business in they were part of the business industry, so they came in directly, because who will take over all the work their parents had did it. So that's how it passes on, and then they pass it on to their children, their business line and everything, and that's how it's done. um from generation to another. So that's how it's done in most societies. Caste system is an extreme form of this. Now you know that, acha, this is good. This is a positive example that somebody's parents are doctors, they are also being doctors, and they will pass on this tradition. That's how it goes about. Of course, only if you qualify. Okay, you cannot just be a doctor like without any qualification certification. But now if we talk about the same form, apply the same form to caste system. This is the extreme form of you know how you can go about it. What makes it different from other societies is that in this system there is hereditary hereditary occupational division was sanctioned by rituals. So this was not that somebody wanted by their choice. It was basically on the basis of hereditary occupational division, which was sanctioned by rituals. So whatever there's like, from the power of this, from the power of that. So that's how you let people um comes in and say you have the power of that, from the power of constitution, from the power of rituals in the name of god, and this is, I'm telling you how people do it. Members of the same caste group are supposed to form a social community that practice the same or similar occupation, married within the same caste, and did not eat with members from other castes. So this is what hereditary occupational division. Caste system was based on exclusion, and exclusion often discrimination against our outcast groups. They were subjected to the inhuman practice of untouchability, about which we've already studied in so many books. And that is why political leaders and social reformers like Jyotiba Phule, Gandhiji, P.R. Ambedkar, Periyar Ramaswamy, he belongs to Tamil Nadu, and he's a very strong figure. He was a very strong figure in South India. Periyar Ramaswamy and Naikar advocated and worked to establish a society in which caste inequalities were absent. Partly due to their efforts, and partly due to other socio-economic changes, caste and caste system in modern India have undergone great changes. There have been many changes. With economic development, large scale okay, wait. Where was the economic development, large scale urbanization, growth of literacy and education, occupational mobility, and weakening of the position of the landlords in the village. The old notions of caste hierarchy are breaking. So, of course, with time, changes come. This is very important, and that's how you move on with changes. But still, it's not that it's been gone and it's just been wiped out of the society. It's still even much more prevalent now. Most of the times in urban areas, it does not matter, much who's walking along next to us on a street or eating at the next table in a restaurant. The Constitution of India prohibited caste-based discrimination and laid down foundation of policies to resolve the injustice of caste systems. We have again, right to equality if we talk about in the Constitution. Okay, then foundations of policies to reverse the injustices of caste system. If a person who lived a century ago were to return to India, she would have been greatly surprised to see greatly surprised at the changes that has come about in a country. So if you would have if any person, of course now they won't be alive, but from the back century, if they would have come and seen that how India has progressed and how modern times are changing all these rituals and everything, so that person would be like surprised. Yet caste system has not disappeared. It's the saddest past part that caste system still exists in India, and not only in India, in many other countries we saw as well. We saw the example of Bulgaria, how there also Roma people were discriminated. So uh, some of the oldest aspects of caste, they still persist. Even now, most people marry within their own caste or tribe. They won't marry if you are not if two people are not from the same religion. For example, if one is Hindu, they will marry, but if one is Hindu Muslim, they will not tend to marry. Or if one is Hindu Christian, Christian Sikh, so that's how. Or Christian Muslim, or you can see Muslim Sikh. So it's just that, people will prefer somebody from their own religion. Even now, most people marry within their own caste or tribe. Untouchability has not ended completely. Even some people, even after making all these laws, giving them constitutional right to equality, still that it's sad that even after having so many constitutional provisions, untouchability still exists. Efforts of centuries of advantage and disadvantage continues to be felt today. The caste group that had access to education under the old system have done very well in acquiring modern education as well. The groups that did not have access to education or were prohibited from acquiring it have naturally lagged behind. And that's why how this some people are more advanced than some being still being backward is this only, that there was caste system and so much division in society that all these education and other good facilities were only accessible to some people. And if, of course, if some groups are not given that, how do you think that advancement and their opening up of their mind and exploring new ideas will take place if you're only restricted to a wall, sorry, if you are only restricted to a well, how will you, see beyond it, right? There's a saying that uh this key, what is this, मेंढक, कुएं का मेंढक ना इधर जा सकता है ना उधर जा सकता है, वो अपनी दुनिया उसी में सीमित रखता है ना, दैट्स व्हाट, कुएं का मेंढक हो जाएगा वो, एंड दैट्स द सैडेस्ट पार्ट, दैट व्हाई एनीबडी ओके शुड बी लिमिटेड टू अचीव देयर कैपेबिलिटी ऑन ओनली ऑन द बिकॉज ओनली ऑन द basis that they belong to certain social groups or so. That is why there's a disproportionately large presence of something. Was it in here? Sorry, it's not. mm, I don't know. This thing has. Let me see if I can see it. But I think it's there's this. There's nothing. I think there's some printing fault. In the presence in that the let me see if it's behind it. Sometimes it happens that, but no, it's not there. So dash in the urban middle class kind. Okay, now since it's not there, then uh caste continues to be closely linked to economic status, and that's how, even still today we say that caste is so much linked to the economic status. I do not care what my caste is. Why are we discussing all this in this textbook? Are we not promoting casteism by talking about this? Okay, I'll discuss that. Now you don't like it, didn't you tell me that whatever there is wherever there is domination, we should discuss it in political science? Why will caste disappear if we keep mum about it? So they're talking about different, on the same issue. That one is saying that we want our nation to be secular and everything, and then we should not discuss all that. How will, people, by discussing it in textbooks and everything, people will, we are trying to propagate, promote, and all this caste system. No, unless you recognize that something is wrong, how are you going to, this amend it, change it, correct it? So we are discussing this whole caste system and everything. These are put in the textbooks so that we can recognize them, that these systems were wrong, and discuss about them, so that we, in the near future, or even 100 years after from today, we don't end up becoming the same we were 200 years ago. We want to evolve and not go back to rituals which were biased, which made people feel low, and some made some people feel superior. So that's wrong. Just talking about it, discussing, debating is all recognition of what was wrong, what was right, and how it should be, and what we can further do to correct it. So, what is urbanization? Let's study about this glossary. Urbanization is shift from rural areas to urban areas. A lot of times you'll see that people going from rural areas to urban areas in need of work. Occupational mobility, shift from one occupation to another. Uh, Usually when new generation takes up new occupation other than their which was practiced by their ancestors. Caste hierarchy, a ladder like formation in which all the caste groups from the highest to the lowest caste. We've already done this in previous classes also. I think in textbooks of class 7 or 6, we discussed this in the political science. So I hope this is clear till now, that you've understood why it is important to discuss caste system. Okay.